Fred Rubino, welcome to the Reactivist. I feel
Thank you
like
so much.
I feel like you're a natural reactivist, being a comedian. How long have you been a comedian for? Let's start there.
About 15 years. Not
Really?
as long as everyone my age. I got into it very late.
What did you do before you were a comedian?
I was a construction worker for 37 years in Manhattan, New York.
Were you the funniest construction worker in Manhattan?
100%. In fact, sometimes I would get to the job and the foreman would say, you didn't do much today, but everyone was laughing, so it's okay.
So, did you get into comedy because you were done with construction, or did that foreman fire you?
No, I got into it because my kids were going to private school and I couldn't afford it. So I needed a second job. And so I figured I could probably make something on comedy.
That's actually a very unique perspective because most people, when they want to increase their salary, they don't think, you know what, I'm going to go be a stand-up comic.
That's true. They go out and get a real job. But you know what happened right away? Maybe after the first few years, I started noticing I was getting hired and making money, which a lot of times doesn't happen. Usually you have to do like 10 years before you start making any money. And so I was making a few dollars here and there, and I was like, you know what, maybe this could grow into something. So I kept it up.
Well, that's kind of amazing because I feel like when you start in comedy, you have to do bringer shows where you have to guarantee there's so many people coming to the show, and then they let you on stage, and then they give you $25 and they're like, see you later.
Exactly. So what happened with that was I did that for like 5 years, the first 5 years. And then after like that, I was saying, you know what? If 15, 20 people are coming to see me, why don't I just go to the bar and say, hey, let's do a show and I'll keep the door. And that's what I
Oh,
was doing. So I was cutting them out for that because a lot of the bringer shows, you would have to bring 2 or 3 people, but 20 people were coming to see me. So I was saying, hey, I'll charge $15 and make $300 a show.
you're right. That's exactly right. You have to produce your own shows in order to, and then you keep the door. You're totally right. And then the bar gets the 2 drink minimum, right?
Yeah, and then most of my friends are alcoholics, so the bar made a lot of money, with a lot of stuff. So that always worked out for me. And then what happened was these people, when I would bring a lot of people, I would say, hey, why don't you just hire me for one of the real shows? But they didn't want to give up those 10, 15, 20 people coming to their bringer show. So that actually set me back. They were like, no, 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 we want to keep you bringing in all these people. So that's why I branched out on my own. And then when I did, I was getting exposure, and some comics would say, hey, would you like to come open for me? And then I started making some money.
Did you ever do the emceeing portion of the comedy world?
Yes, I was horrible at it. That is my worst job in comedy because I like to do jokes. I don't like to do crowd work. So
Right.
I like to write a joke, see if it works. That's the payoff. And so emceeing is like playing with people, and I would never get I got your name wrong 10 times. So I never get the names right. So that's like your only job. One guy who was a big comedian, he died not too long ago. His name was Mitch Walters. Great comic, went all over the country. And I was emceeing, and I would say, and his two first names, and I would say, I had to do 2 shows with him. Walter Mitchell. I went backwards, and he got up and he goes, I don't understand. Why would you get my name wrong? Oh, I'm so sorry. It never happened again. 2 hours later, I announced him the same way because I overthought it.
Did you wear a hard hat when you were a construction worker?
Yes, I had to wear all the things.
I was going to give you an out. I was going to blame the fact that you got knocked in the head with something on a construction site in order to not be able to remember someone's name 2 hours after they corrected you.
It's very stressful when you get up there. You think, oh, I'm just going to talk. And then you see 150 people in a room and you're like, oh my God, I got to make them laugh. And it's very stressful. So I got all my jokes in my head. The last thing I want to do is remember someone's name, especially if it's a name I never heard of. And most people write it down. And I was like, I don't have to write it down. I can remember. And I never remember.
You're a fan of Donald Trump. So Donald
Yeah.
Trump asks you to be a part of.
Yes. Anything he wants, I would do.
Okay. Well, then here's what he wants you to do.
Uh-uh.
He would like you to join his cabinet and advise on how to make his speeches maybe a little funnier.
Oh, the dream job.
But you have to come to work every day dressed in drag.
No. It's
No?
against my religion.
And what religion is that?
Christian religion says you cannot dress like a woman.
Then why do the priests wear dresses?
Only the gay priests wear dresses. The other ones wear robes. He would never say that because he would not want you to be someone you're not. I don't think he's homophobic. I don't think he cares about that at all. In fact, he's passed a lot of legislation that was pro-gay. And so I don't think he would want you to be anybody you're not.
Okay, so I actually went to Eastville Comedy Club on Saturday night in Brooklyn. I'm sure you know it well. And the headliner was Janine Garofalo. However, she went on second, which is the most bizarre thing in the world.
Wow.
And yeah, it was very odd. Anyway, a guy that got up on stage this weekend, he made a joke that I thought was super risky, and people laughed. It takes a lot to get an audible laugh out of me. And
Everybody's different. Everybody's threshold of comedy and tragedy is very, very different. It's very personal.
well, speaking of comedy and tragedy, so he talked about how the word gay used to be a common use for people of a certain generation, really my generation, and I guess older. And when people used to say, "Oh, that's so gay," it was just sort of a thing that people said. I don't know if you remember this. You're a little older than me, but so and it was commonplace. Now you can't say that anymore. You can say, "Oh, that's so gay." And
Right.
his joke was, when people when my friends know when I said, that's so gay back in the early 2000s, they knew I was upset about 9/11. And the crowd starts, he's in New York. And I'm like, they thought it was hilarious. It's like, those guys who flew those planes, they were so gay to do that. I was the only one not laughing. What do you think about that?
Well, that's because you're in Manhattan and there's a very ultra liberal crowds, and anything that is anti-American or they think is funny, and that's not my sense of humor. And I don't get offended at a lot of things, but I have my own parameters of what I joke about. I put
Right.
them on myself. I don't put them on anybody else. But I've seen the same thing. I've seen guys get up there and talk about horrific stuff and people laughing. And I'm like, how do you think this is funny? I have no clue. But I'm in no position to lecture anybody. That's your form of art. That's what you want to do. Go ahead. But it's very subjective. And my crowds are usually middle class, 50 and over crowd. And so I know what I should joke about and what I should not, because if I know, because that's who I am too. So I set my own parameters because I know they think that's not funny. I never thought any 9/11 jokes were funny, by the way.
No, I mean, I was shocked. Okay. Let's talk about the one thing we spoke ever so briefly about when we first got on this call. But you were talking about things that seem like conspiracies, but end up being coincidences. Where were you going with that? And can you give me an example of what you were talking about?
Sometimes, especially now, conspiracy theories are through the roof now because, and rightly so, we've caught like government agencies lying about a lot of things, you know. And so people say, hey, they take every situation now Now, every situation is someone manipulating stuff, and this is the way it is, and so I can't really I can't really go along with every conspiracy theory, but I have to say lately, I don't disavow any conspiracy theory. Of what I've seen in the last 20 years, 10 years, I don't say anymore. That's no, unless I saw it with my own eyes. Like if you're still saying a missile hit the Trade Center, I got to tell you, it just didn't happen. I don't care if you have every conspiracy, every fact. It didn't happen.
Mm-hmm.
I saw it with my own eyes. But nowadays, now with the hurricanes, everybody's saying they have the technology to hit lasers on each side of the hurricane that intensifies them and guides them to wherever they want. And I was like, come on, that can't happen. But lately, they've never seen a hurricane go across 1,000 miles and still keep its strength. That like never happened. It never went across Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina. And then I start seeing old news reports about these old scientists. There's a Chinese scientist that's very famous. I forget his name.
I don't
10
know.
years ago.
Mr. Miyagi, I have no idea who you're talking
Yes, yes, I think it's him. It's Mr. Miyagi. And he was saying that we now have the technology in space. If we hit lasers, we could change the weather. We could make weather patterns. And this was 10 or 15 years ago. And I'm like, okay, nothing is off the table. And so.
And that would be, and the purpose for hitting a storm with a laser would be to what? Promote the climate crisis?
Yes, that's a huge money grab in this country. It's just incredible how much money is funneled in, and because it's a perfect scam. I'm not saying it is a scam, but it's a perfect scam because if it doesn't work, you could spend billions of dollars on whatever thing that there is to make the weather hotter, colder, and if it doesn't happen, it didn't happen. No one's counting the money. No one cares where the contracts went out to. It is a fantastic money grab. So if you could have this technology and say, okay, we're going to make, hurricanes more intensified and stuff, and that would release billions of dollars for climate change and stuff, then yes, it's a great motivator. Like I said, no conspiracy to me is off the table after what I've saw with everything. I mean, with RFK Jr. saying he has exact evidence that the CIA and the FBI killed his father and his uncle, and he lays it out. I never believed that. Now I'm not saying I believe it. I do not believe it.
I know. I don't consider myself as a conspiracy theorist, but I think during the pandemic era, too many things happened that it was almost predictable what the next thing they would tell us to do was. But I can't, there's no point of me even saying the words, because as soon as these words come out of my mouth, I get shadow banned, right? Like you say.
Me too.
This, that, or the other, and the words, that's it. The algorithm.
And that's a conspiracy too. The conspiracy that they have this technology to pick out words of what you're saying on YouTube, Facebook, and then they get you out of there. They want you to say exactly what they want. I'm like, get out of here. And then it happened to me 20 times, and I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly what they're doing.
They do. They suppress it. I'm just shocked with all this technology that we have and all of our capabilities that we have. They cure diseases and they do all of these things, right? But they can't get rid of head lice in schools, right? Like, why can't they abolish head lice? But that's a conversation for another day.
There's still neighborhoods overrun with rats.
I know.
And cockroaches. And I'm saying, we don't have the technology to kill rats.
Right. We've got mosquitoes that are manufactured, right, to get out another invasive mosquito, right? That has
Right.
some kind of air, that's carrying some disease from some other country, right? But we can't manufacture the remedy of some kind to get rid of rodents that literally have no purpose unless, I mean, I'm sure I'm offending God knows who, like animal rights activists or something. But we don't have that technology. I mean, we've got, I guess we could always drown them like Eric Adams wanted to do. But
Yes. There's poison. There's a lot of things you could do. I just think they're not doing it.
you have a praying mantis, which is an endangered species. How do we make rats an endangered species? Fred, come up with that, and you will be a billionaire.
Yes. Well, you know what? I think the these people who eat rats, like you see in Queens, New York, that they found a woman barbecuing rats on the street, selling them. Not only is she twisted to the point where she caught rats and is eating them, there's people out there that are like, ooh, look at that rat. I hope, could she sell me one?
People were buying the rats?
People were buying the rats. People were standing next to it, smiling, waiting for them to be ready. Because, a rat's got to be done just right. There's nothing worse than an undercooked rat or a dry rat. You don't want.
Is there some sort of licensing that you need to actually serve people on the street rats? Like, can
No,
somebody come and shut her down?
I guess you can, but listen, I've been eating hot dogs for 60 years. I'm sure I have at least 2 or 3 rats for 60 years, little pieces of rat. Over the years, I'm sure I've eaten 1 or 2 rats.
Oh, God.
You just choose not to eat. I choose not to eat the rat. That's just me. So if you're looking to take me to lunch, rat is out. Let's not go rat.
You know what? We have a deal. I will never, ever take
Thank
you
you.
to eat a rat. But Fred, it has been a pleasure. I appreciate you being on. Sorry that we had a blip in the middle.
That was your fault.
Everything's my fault. Don't you know that?
Okay, I'm glad we settled that. Thank you so much. I hope to see you again on the Frank Morano show.
Actually, this is the first time you and I have ever seen each other during the day.
Yes, it's strange.
All right. Well, enjoy. What's your next show?
My next show, I believe, is in Jersey somewhere. I don't know. I always got to look at my own schedule. So if anybody wants to see me, go to fredrubino.com.
FredRubino.com. All right. Well, good to see you, and I'll see you soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. If you were to author a new, like a comedy for dummies type book, what would be your number one advice that you would give to comedians?
Be funny.